Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of the Healing Brothers Presents. It is time to deal with the pain. I am one of your co-hosts, Brandon Jones, and I'm joined by the legendary Sam Simmons. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm good. It's a good day. You know, um, trying. This is 2022. Trying to put a positive light on things. I think, but sometimes you never know. Sometimes you never know.
You don't
Shoot.
know. You don't know, and it's hard. It's
But,
hard to find positivity when we have so much going on.
yeah, but personally, things are good for me. As long as I stay in the house.
Stay safe, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
I stay in the
absolutely.
house. I ain't gotta have no dumb arguments with people, all that other kind of stuff. So
hmm
I'm good from that standpoint. Very, very good.
Gotcha,
So how
gotcha.
about you?
I'm doing good. I had a pretty busy week, a lot of meetings, a lot of people looking for strategies on how to do things better here in the Twin Cities when it comes to mental health. I'm blessed to be at a lot of these tables, but unfortunately, I think what is happening is we're getting a lot of the same rhetoric. And you pointed this out to me years ago, like 10 years ago, that people hit that panic button, but when it comes down to solutions, there isn't a lot of creativity. It's a lot of the same talk, mentorship, programs, things like that, which are good things. But we have to be mindful that this time period that we're in, we have to match what's happening, the context of now, and not just think that these old strategies are going to work. And I made that point at a pretty important meeting, and a lot of people were a little surprised that I said that because I got frustrated. I'm pretty sure my facial expressions on the Microsoft Teams call was just like, here we go with the same old BS. But I had said something like, look, I'm hearing people comparing things to the 90s here in the Twin Cities, but this is a different era. In the 90s, there was drug territory and the gang structure was way different than it is today. These people, these young folks who are out here doing what they're doing, it ain't about drugs. They ain't out here selling. It's about territory, respect, or disrespect from their standpoint. It's a lot of trauma and it's about status. And when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with people who don't. I mean, young people who just don't care. I mean, they really are out here and they're willing to put their lives on the line for clout, and that's a different ball game. And I'm saying this in front of some pretty movers and shakers, we'll say, in the Twin Cities area, and they were surprised. They were surprised because I'm giving them an underground perspective as they're thinking about all these beautiful programs they're gonna put. Like, we can't have any more basketball tournaments. Like, this stuff, we need to stop and be honest about what's going on here. Because what happens is we can programs are good, but it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the solution. Just like talk therapy. I think
Yeah,
talk therapy is a part of it, but not the. A lot of people right now are saying mental health is going to fix this, and I'm saying no, it's not. It's going to help some folks, but we got to be honest. When we're talking about mostly black males, they don't want to go to therapy. Therapy is it's like cussing them out saying you're going to take them to therapy. You have to have a different therapeutic approach, and we have to be real about that. Go ahead.
no, you're on point. You're on point. And this whole thing about programs and mentorship. It that's usually the response, especially when we're talking about black males, right? You
Right.
know, the work I have done, the work we've done together, and you have noted that I do not talk about mentorship in the
No.
same reference to anybody else. It's like money to do the programs I do, and not I'm not asking nobody for no money. I don't do nothing for free, but I ain't asking nobody for no money, right? I let my work prove itself. And even when you asked for grants, if you didn't put mentorship in the grant, you wasn't getting the
It,
money. But
yeah,
I'm
they
hard
weren't going to
headed. I'm
get
not
it.
gonna put something in the grant that I ain't gonna do, or I ain't
Right.
gonna claim to do. Right? When you're
Right.
talking about trauma, you got to talk about more than mentorship, especially when half the mentors are traumatized as much as the kids they're supposed to be mentoring. Okay,
Same thing.
and
Yep. Same thing with fathers in the home. It's the same
right.
thing. Yep.
What's wrong is we don't have no daddies in the home. What was interesting, somebody brought this up to me, because I say a whole lot of stuff. And lately, a lot of that stuff comes back, right? Mr. Simmons, I remember when you said so and so and so, right?
Yeah.
And it helped me a lot. And I think it was a mother or maybe, or somebody said, I remember you said a child does a whole lot better for if they at least have one healthy parent versus
Right.
two traumatized parents.
Right.
And she said, ever since I heard that, my whole goal is to be a healthy parent. And it has helped my family, right? Be honest with my children, and we'll get into some of this, that vulnerability we're going to talk about later on, being vulnerable with their own children. You know what I'm saying? And them old ideals about community and family, they got shot to hell about 40 years ago, right? And some of them were on the downswing already, right? But you're right. And then we're gonna talk about programs and I ain't got no problem with programs because I run programs, right? But you got to run programs in a way that's going to improve people in a way that when they're not with you, they're thinking different. You can't run programs where they come to the program, they get their little stipend, and that's the only reason they'll show up. And then if they don't show up, they and they come back with a little sad story. All of us got a sad ass story.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing is, I got a regular group. I think how many guys I've seen this in my group on Wednesday, because it's 2 parts. I have one in the afternoon and one in the evening. And I think we had about 17 guys, which, folks are saying like 17 guys on Zoom. Yeah, 17 guys on Zoom. And I asked them, because we was talking about masculinity, toxic masculinity, which was a term they knew nothing about. And I had to explain to them, this is one of them terms you need to know something about, because this is what you're being judged by.
Yeah, okay? Exactly. Yep.
And they got and they've been in a group for a while, and because I got one of them open groups, so different levels, and they was talking about having groups like this. Everybody should. I looked at them. I said, look, if probation didn't make you come to my group or told you had to come to my group, would you come to this group on your own? They all started laughing. No. I said, so we got to do something about that. If it's out here and you got to be forced to deal with it, how do we get around that? Right? So yeah, we can have programs, but if you're doing that kumbaya, it's hard out here for a little young brother and that kind of stuff, and you ain't doing nothing around the ideal parenting, the ideal of what it looks like if you ever become a parent, because we got, even though you got the youngsters out there buck wild, we got old black men out there coaching them along. So let's see, we didn't even talk about that. Who didn't have a plan for being 50, right? I was having a conversation with one of my partners the other day. He was talking about one of his partners, and he said, why don't you talk about that more on your show? About the 50-year-old black men, the ones who got stuck in time, who never planned for a future, right? And we'll do that probably maybe next week or something. But I'm glad you brought that up. So did they say anything? What was their response when you brought that up in the little meeting? I can imagine what meeting it was, by the way. But what did they say?
It's the thing that happened, and I know this happens for you too when you're on panels. How you say a thing or two and then you just swing all the energy, and then people start saying, just like Sam said, just like Sam said. So that's what happened. It was like Brandon said, just like what Brandon was saying. So I really, what was said was just a bunch of validation to what I had already said. But see, this is the thing. I'm not afraid to be the person to say what everybody's probably thinking, because everybody, I mean, people just give these talking points to not seem racist or like you hate your folks or you're a coon or whatever. And we ain't telling the truth, man. And I'm at a point in time where there's too many kids out here who are both victims and perpetrating what's going on out here. And if we're not going to be honest, and we're supposed to be, influential people in the city, then what are we doing? I mean, we're causing more harm to folks. And that's what I see. And things are getting worse. Nothing's gotten better. All the money that's been pumped through the community through organizations and all the strategies, things have gotten worse. And the only people who are saying that it's gotten worse are the police. And they can't say anything because they're being targeted right now.
Right.
But like they got the statistics, they got the experience, they got everything you need to say, yo, this is bad. Hello. And what is the response? We need to hold them accountable. And I think that is like, if we're not going to work collaboratively together, what is going to happen in the community? Because right now we're on pace to beat all the records of everything that bad happened last year, this year. Home invasions, carjackings, shootings, and murders from guns and domestics. All those numbers, the month's going to be over in 2 days. All those numbers are beyond where they were last year at this time. So people are calling this a pandemic response. I don't think I think it's multiple things happening at once. You cannot blame, C-19 COVID on this. You can't blame COVID on this.
Well,
it's the time.
Where it comes in at, it just took the scab off of the problem.
Right. It removed the rug.
Right.
Everything you swept under, can't ignore it.
And when you got so many things not going right.
Right.
And then they all get attacked at once. And then you start having these responses, where you're just reactionary responses to what's going on, because you had the situation with George Floyd. You had a response to that. All of a sudden, people's eyes opened that, people weren't treating particularly black men or black people fair in terms of, the police responses and those kind of things. And we got to do that. And then, so we have to, we do a knee-jerk response to that at the same time. And none of it is balanced. None of it. Right. It's never been balanced. That's the problem. No. Right? It hasn't been balanced for various reasons, for various biases and that kind of stuff. You got people in multiple areas who weren't being accountable to the larger group. Accountable maybe individually, but not to the larger group. And we have parts of our community that has just given up because if you try to hold your own community, people in your own community accountable, then you would be called a sellout. So now I'm just going to find my way to deal with my own children and move into a nice safe space and act like and only deal with y'all at the club. Okay. If that,
if I go,
and because I can't tell you the truth, you just, and then when you got folks who, in there too busy trying to deny that they're racist and stuff, doing reactionary stuff and that's not they're not doing it in the best interest of the people. They're doing the best interest of their own comfort, right? Because this is a multi-layered kind of deal, and there's always have been, right?
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen is the people with the louder voice who got the clout want to go back to the way it was. Lock up everything that's chocolate. And we know it ain't just black folks doing it, but the faces we see is black faces, and a lot of them. And I don't even want to get into, well, white folks do this too. I don't give a darn at this point. Okay? Yeah. Because that some of them young black faces don't care if you black too.
Yeah, they sure don't.
Okay? And so the thing is how do we get a balance on both accountability and emotional development, right? Yeah. We have to do both. And how do we work with the young ones coming up? We got a video that we're going to show about how young, when we talk about young ones. You want me to click this up?
Yeah, we can show the clip. So this is out of Chicago. However, we've had similar situations happen locally here. This is taking place all across the nation in most of your urban cities, where you have young children, as young as this boy here, 11 years old, involved in the violence.
Actually makes me very sad. The kids are, around this type of situations and not in school or doing what 11-year-olds usually do.
Still traumatized, this woman asked not to be on camera as she reacts to the arrest of an 11-year-old boy who, along with at least 3 other males, are accused of carjacking her and her adult daughter at gunpoint.
He didn't really say anything. He just was patting my daughter's pockets to see what else was in her pockets.
A neighbor's doorbell security camera captured the bold daytime crime that happened in the driveway of the woman's house last November. The video shows the mother and daughter returning home in a red SUV as a dark-colored car driving down the street suddenly stops.
Now I'm gonna pause it for a second. Now look at the car they rolled up in. That's a BMW. That's
Right.
a stolen car as well. Okay, so just focus. All right.
At least 2 of the alleged carjackers then get out of the car. Their driver pulls into a nearby alley.
The kid stopped and looked at me, and my daughter looked at me, and I said, "Oh God!" And within
Oh God,
20
here they
seconds,
come.
the kid walked up and pulled a gun out on us.
Moments later, the 11-year-old can be seen coming up the driveway.
He actually skipped like a child all the way up.
Look at the time in the top left. It's 1:32 p.m.
Mm.
Okay.
And the 11-year-old little bitty kid.
Yeah. Well, listen to how she describes him walking up to her. Watch this.
Like skipping, like a little, like young kids do. He's being a kid.
It was over
Skipping, being a kid. Armed. I mean, man, this is where we're at.
in a matter of minutes. The young thief and others made off with the SUV, the women's purses, and cell phones. And while the victims did eventually get the vehicle back and some of their belongings, the woman says what cannot be replaced is her sense of safety, her trust of others, and a belief in our criminal justice system.
I'm questioning the parenting, the judges, prosecutors. I mean, nothing happens.
Investigators say they are still pursuing other leads in hopes of arresting the other carjackers involved.
Dear MS.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Sam?
I mean, like I said, the little bitty boy, right?
Yeah, 11.
Following his so-called role models.
Yeah, the 13 and 14-year-olds.
Right. And like you said, they roll up in a stolen car and steal another car, right? And again, her response is what we've been hearing a lot. What about the parents? What about prosecution? They're not locking them up. Because the thing now is big thing now is we're not giving folks enough time because several of the cases here in Minneapolis have been with folks who were supposedly on probation. Right?
Many of them, not several, almost damn near all of them. They all got it's crazy.
So the notion is one is why are they on the street? Well, they might have got bail.
They bailed out.
Yeah. But the issue is that this is the system we have. But again, we got this, the thing about people concerned about the no cash bail and that kind of stuff. And that how that would, and see, the problem is a lot of this stuff was being abused in the past, right? Against people of color.
Yeah.
And then it took all the stuff around George Floyd to get certain people to believe it. We've been saying it forever, but get people to believe it. And now we had them knee-jerk reactions. And now how do we get a balance? Because trying to lock folks up forever ain't gonna change this because you ain't gonna keep them.
Yeah.
So you lock them up as an adult at 14, 16 years old. The most time they're gonna get maybe 7 years. Okay, so that means that they're in their mid-20s. And what do you think they're learning in prison? Especially when you ain't doing no work with them. You ain't doing no trauma work, real trauma work with them. And when they come out, we're not doing the kind of work we need for them to be productive citizens once they're out, because we continue the punishment. So this is a bigger issue that, yeah, we all need to partner in terms of the community, in terms of law enforcement, because the thing is law enforcement is not going to continue tolerating you know, like it or not, in America, certain lives mean more than other lives. Let me say it one more time. In America, certain lives mean more than other lives. And you know, just recently in New York, where you had about 2 or 3 police officers killed over the weekend in New York, and then a couple other places, was it Texas or whatever?
By young people, real young too.
What, young police officers?
No, young shooters.
Yeah, young, and so, you know, all of a sudden, since, you know, police officers in New York got killed, now we want to talk about where the guns coming from. We you know, it's like,
yeah,
really. And so we still have the issue around, does all lives matter, right? Do all communities matter? But it's got to matter to everybody. This not somebody.
Right.
This not when it's only personal to you. It's just like here. We got all the outer suburbs. Now they all worried about crime and violence, you know, but long as it stayed in the city, they wasn't having this conversation.
Right.
So there definitely got to be a more of a, what we would call a trauma-informed approach, but we're talking about a culturally informed trauma-informed approach. Because trauma-informed approach without a cultural foundation that includes all people, and that's just words too.
Right. Saying
all the right words.
Right.
I don't know.
It's tough, you know. I don't think that. I think what you said is important. That it has to be a multi-layered approach, and what I hear is that it's not. What I hear is people want to point a finger in one direction and just go down that route without really scaling back and looking at the full scope of what's going on. Like what you just said. They'll lock some of these dudes up. Some of them, they ain't getting locked up. I mean, they're posting little bail, if any, and they're out and they're back on the streets for some crazy crimes. And then they end up getting caught a second time when they just got released. But when they are locked up, what kind of rehabilitation, which we don't really have, we don't have it anymore, honestly. What are they learning? And if there's nothing there to develop these men when they're incarcerated, all they do is become better criminals. They just become better what got them in there. Because why? You have to look at the culture of prison, right? The culture of prison, what ends up happening is it's all about survival. It's all about keeping your mindset fresh so that you can survive up in there. And it's very click-based and it's devious. And that culture ingrains in you and it doesn't necessarily go anywhere. So when you're released back into the community, you still, for the most part, function like that.
Well, but see, the problem is to a certain degree, they were functioning like that before.
Yeah, yes, because the prison culture has spilt out into the actual community and has become one of the drivers, one of the influencers to the community's prison culture. And it's been like that for 35, almost 40 years now.
Right.
And no one talks about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's survival culture. You know, survive what I call survival stress management. Whatever feels good in the moment, I do, no matter what, because I'm not worried. I'm not thinking about the consequences, if at all, until later. But the other piece is why would I think about consequences when I feel like I've been suffering consequences all along?
Mm-hmm.
In this, my life is responding to consequences, either perceived or real, right? So now, if you got people around in leadership keep saying, you know, you're victimized by certain things, it also kind of skews your vision of what's going on too. Or the only time you want to respond to things in your community is only when it's defined as a crisis. When do we start responding to things before it's a crisis? When it's obvious beforehand, right?
Right.
And we always want to talk about keeping our children safe, but how do you keep them safe from each other?
Yeah.
And then we ain't even talking about the fact that there's an increase in suicide amongst our children. When we used to brag about, black folks don't do suicide, we've been doing indirect suicide for years.
Yeah, menticide.
Homicide is indirect suicide if you participate in that kind of behavior.
Right.
What I mean by indirect suicide is when you're not that concerned about not dying. You're more concerned about being disrespected. So, wow. I don't know.
Wow.
Hey, see, it's your fault.
It ain't my fault. I did not do that. It ain't my fault. It's again, it's about looking out the window and looking in the mirror and saying, what can I do? And for myself, I cannot lie to myself and act like this is a one-sided situation. This pain, this stuff that's going on, this trauma is not, it's not one thing. It ain't just white supremacy. Now, white supremacy might have started, but we have manifested it to this whole level where it's at today. We have to have a complete conversation about this. I feel like we're in a danger. I think that we're just in this danger zone where we might literally not be in existence in the next 30 years if this continues. We're having so much death. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. So this conversation dovetails into our topic for today, which is vulnerability. And when I see that 11-year-old boy and those young men hop out of that car and they roll up on that woman and her daughter just so casually in the middle of the daytime, and it looked like it was during a weekday. I mean, they should be in school, but that's a whole nother thing too. I think about the vulnerability. They don't know what those women had on them. They didn't care. And who's going to shoot a kid? That's the other thing. These dudes walking up on with guns, what's going to happen when one of these good Samaritans who's strapped ends up shooting one of our kids? What is the narrative going to be in our community? Because that is going to happen. Somebody's going to get the gun out quicker than one of these kids is, and they're going to end up laying out a 12 or 13-year-old black boy in one of these cities. And then what's going to happen? Are we going to start protesting? Because, again, we got to have a full conversation about this. Otherwise, we're going to end up looking like fools pretty soon. Because, unfortunately, if this keeps happening, somebody's going to draw one of these kids. And I hope that it never happens. But given the likelihood of what's going on, people aren't going to take, like you said earlier, people ain't going to just keep taking this, man. We already, in Atlanta, the area of Buckhead is talking about seceding from the city of Atlanta. Here in the Twin Cities, the first ring suburbs of Minneapolis have come together, and they're not trying to secede from Hennepin County, but they want their own police force. they want to deal with their own stuff because the crimes get that bad. Like, this is where people are literally, I mean, it's a lot of legalities and stuff like that. But the thought process that we need to protect our own community from black kids, from black people, that's where people are at. This is nuts. And guess what? There are black people in those communities that agree.
Yeah.
That's so we can't say it's white supremacy. This is people trying to maintain safety. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is the issue around, I do believe there's, the white supremacy is the foundation of America, right?
Yes, agreed.
But when we're having this conversation, and we could also say that some of these things that we're seeing is the long-term results of white supremacy. We could say that, right?
I agree with that too.
So when I'm having these conversations, I don't even bring that up.
I don't either. But it gets brought up a lot.
Right. It's the given, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? But because see what happens when you bring that up, depending on what audience you're in, that's where people get stuck.
Exactly.
I need to talk about what's going on, the results of that, the negative results as affects community, individual communities, and the community as a whole. Because another reason I don't start there is depending on the audience, you start there, then again you get stuck in an argument: is it true or not? I believe it's true. Some other person might not believe it, who don't look like me or whatever. But one thing we all can see, we have a problem, right? And we have a problem with young people. Who are as emotionally misguided as they could possibly be, who need both accountability and compassion at the same time, which takes work. It's not easy. All or nothing is easy, right? Because all or nothing goes down to whatever I feel comfortable with. But when you're talking about needing both accountability and compassion, means it takes work. It means you need to challenge how you really see it. If I see Black kids as animals, I'm not trying to show them no compassion.
Right.
Or if I'm always scared of anything Black, I'm not showing them no compassion. We'll prove that over history, in terms of how we lock lock a Black person up and not lock up a white person for the same crime. We've seen that. Okay, but the issue is if we want to get a better handle on this for the long term, we really got to figure out how do we balance that. Right. We have the immediate problem. We got to deal with the immediate problem, but we cannot we always end up thinking about dealing with the immediate problem, which ends up making a larger problem when you don't think about the larger problem at the same time. Right. And one of the things we know that definitely guides America is white fear. And white fear is rumbling hard. Right. And when white fear happens, we don't come out on the good side of that shit. Okay. And see, my thing is now if we define this stuff on one group of folks, you get grandkids like mine who live in the suburbs catching hell because they happen to be Black and male. Well, that's the price we got to pay. Oh, y'all don't like paying no prices, not for your little babies. Right. So if we don't want to, my fear is we don't go back to the way things was before George Floyd around the criminal justice system.
Right.
And I'm afraid that we're going to go back and then some. Right. Pass go.
Right.
Because certain people in our community are already mad that they had to take a look at themselves over the last 18 months already. They're already pissed off, right? That's why you're getting all this stupid stuff about, banning conversations about slavery and the Holocaust in schools. How dare you show us put the mirror up to us and put the mirror up to the history of America in a real way? How dare you do that? How dare you make me uncomfortable? And then say, oh, we don't want this in our school because we don't want to make our children. No, it ain't about your children. Many of your children, if they ain't blind and stupid, already know a lot of this stuff or been exposed to it. So it really ain't about no children. About your comfort. So back to your vulnerability.
Yeah, I think because again, that's what we're talking about. People feeling vulnerable, but I want to frame it again for these young people, because it's not just guys anymore. We're seeing a lot of young ladies get involved too. Their vulnerability tolerance or level or capacity, however we want to term it, is low. It's super low. So what do I mean by that? The definition of vulnerability is the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. So it's the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. And when we talk about trauma and we talk about these young kids, their brains are literally being developed to prevent this harm from happening to them physically and emotionally. And that's, we talk about survival mode. That's where a lot of these kids are. So to them, there is no risk in running up on those ladies. There's no risk for that 11-year-old hopping up the car. Like she said, he's skipping like a kid to rob, to steal this woman's belongings in her vehicle. He's still being a kid, even in these heinous acts that are going on. So when we talk about vulnerability, what is vulnerability for these kids when that threshold level is so low, that level of fear is not there? Jail does not even scare these kids, Sam. They're not scared of jail.
Oh no. And that's, it's like when they haven't allowed me to be in some of the meetings you're in, although I'm going to have a meeting this week with some of the people in the upper echelon, right? But how do you punish somebody who know how to be punished
and expects it?
Right.
They
expect to be punished more than they expect to be loved.
Damn, say that again. Jesus.
They expect to be punished more than they expect to be loved.
Now think about that.
And that didn't start just in the system. That started somewhere in the community or at home.
Bingo. And that's why what do we always hear, Sam? We need to go back to the good old days when I can get spanked from neighbor to neighbor till I got home and the daddy came home.
Now you're going too far.
But that's where it comes from.
You didn't grow up there that time. I did.
I'm glad I didn't. My mom has a lot of scars on her body from that time.
Yeah, see, again, back to extremes. Yeah. Right? People do what they know how to do in the moment, right?
Man.
But if we ain't helping them learn better, then it's hard to do better. And I see it all the time in my groups. The more my guys understand what I'm talking about, the better they do. And they're less likely to reoffend.
Right. Mindset shift.
Right. It's like they shift from that poor me, the system. It's like, look, man, let's talk about, now that you understand what trauma is, or what being vulnerable might be, let's look at your whole life. And where did you experience the most traumatic experiences? At my house, in my community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it don't help none when you get the largest society that says that views you as this animal. So we got all three levels, and I'm supposed to care. I'm supposed to care, and your whole response is, "Well, we need to lock them up longer." Okay, so I know how to be punished. I'm ready for that. That.
Has to be more with it.
Yeah, but again, at the same time, I don't have a whole lot of time to. Because we're time sensitive, because a lot of times with programming, we want to spend a long time with folks. We don't have that kind of time. We don't have that luxury. Folks they ain't gonna give you a long time to get it. Some of my methods in my group, folks used to think there was something wrong with my methods, right? It's like, look, man, I ain't trying to hear that. Oh, Mr. Simmons, you're the counselor. No, I'm not supposed to sit here and listen to dumb shit. You don't care nothing about me. If you need me to care something about you, maybe you need to be in another group. It's like, whoa, what do you mean? It's like, I will do you no harm, but I don't have to. I don't like everybody I see. And I might not even like you, but I'm not going to do you no harm because you deserve that. That's a concept that's messed up for folks, especially black folks.
Yeah.
Right. But the guys in the short term, they said, at least he's honest. He ain't sitting there talking about, I love you and we bliss and I just want the best for you. No, I can't want the best for you more than you. How about that? If I can help you not continue to harm yourself Because there's many, we talk about harming yourself in terms of suicide, right? But there's suicidal ideals that continue to harm yourself while you're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? How do I help you not harm yourself? Right? You're gonna sit here and spend time telling me how, everybody, what everybody else done to you, right? And I'm not going to argue with you about the system is this, and you bring up the issue of white supremacy or whatever, and the system is not fair. And okay, fine, we agree with that. But why do you continually make it worse? We can do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can at least break even, not lose all the time, right? And so you talked about mental health. And that's an up and down piece for me, right? But I do know that if you frame it initially around emotional health, how do I manage my emotions? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I manage my emotions? Why am I so emotionally upset about the way you talk to me? Right? What do I feel emotionally at this particular time? Why am I overreacting to something that just happened? Right. Or why do emotionally I think it's okay to take from somebody else? What's wrong with that? So logic, emotional, and you'll find that you sort through that stuff, then we can really get to the core of the mental health stuff.
What's happening? Yep.
Right. Because it's really a processing. Helping people is like rebooting a computer, right? You got all these damn glitches and in the computer, you got all this bad software, attacking a computer. The mind is kind of the same thing. How do we reprogram that in the shortest period of time? Because we got to be honest, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I keep saying.
So I got to get your attention right away. And part of getting your attention right away is this is not your mama's or your daddy's program. This ain't that one. I'm not going to pay you to be here. Okay. If you are more than 5 or 10 minutes late, you can't get in the group. I don't give a damn what the excuse is. Because this is called life. Right? This is called life. Now, we can have a conversation about it later. We can even have a conversation about what that crisis was, since every week you got a new goddamn crisis. Now, we need to talk about that.
And why is your life a crisis every week?
Right. Like, who are you trying to take care of when you can't take care of your damn self? Because most of the time, that's the crisis. You dealing with somebody else's shit. Now, see, I guess.
But the other part of that, too, is the expectation that even though I'm in the wrong, you're still going to let me do what I want to do.
Right.
Which is be here. So it's this mental situation of, I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to finesse my way into still convincing you to still allowing me to participate, even though I'm 15, 20 minutes late. And I got a good excuse.
Oh no! Well, see, that's why we cut that all out, right? And guess what? But most of the guys know who ain't late no more.
Yeah, the one that got called out.
Right. Or they don't get called out. They just don't get to come in. I'm not calling them out because if I call them out in certain ways, now we got to fight. Now you want to threaten my life, right?
Yeah.
And I don't take threats of my life very lightly, right? See, I'm scared of some of my clients. I ain't got no reservations about saying that. Right? And the reason I'm scared of them because they can't trust themselves emotionally. Because they know I'm right. They're scared of their own emotions. Wow. So I gotta understand who I'm playing with, right? So I keep it very simple. You know what the rules was. And on Zoom, it makes it easy, right? I just don't let them in.
Boot them out the room.
Huh?
Yeah. Just boot them out the Zoom.
Yeah. Oh no, you don't even let
They're
them
in the weight room. Yeah, they're in the weight
they're
room.
in the waiting room.
Sit them
All
out.
of my stuff got a weight room. Shoot, ain't none of that open door noise. And even when I was doing group, right, I would say, yeah,
Right.
you're late. If you want to stay, you can stay, but you're not getting no credit. I would give them the option to stay, but you ain't getting no credit. And some of them would stay. That was how important it was to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would talk about it afterwards. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What was going on? I call that compassion accountability. You know, I think you need to be here, but I can't give you no credit because you was late. But you can stay. Now, if you want to leave, go ahead. That's okay. That's fine with me. And we'll see you next week. Right? Then one or two of them get all ignorant. Oh, what the hell I'm doing here? Man, you ain't doing me no favors being here. This is about you.
Right.
Get indignant, cuss me out, and all like that, and then I have to get all out of my comfort zone and get off the mark, and then now I got to act like then Uncle Big clicks in, and then it's like, oh, I have not always did groups. I've done some other stuff, and I remember what that looked like. Keep it up. You look like you could rolling up on me. Think twice. Then I gotta apologize later on for acting all criminal and stuff, And then they get messed up. You know what's interesting about that? There's more lessons in me, semi-snapping and apologizing. And when I apologize, the ironic part and the sad part is most of these young black men have never had a black man apologize for them. And they'll say to me, why are you apologizing? Mm-hmm. He said, I was wrong. Yeah, but I was wrong in the way I responded to you being wrong. And they'll tell me, you don't have nothing to apologize. No, I was wrong in the way I responded to you being wrong.
Right.
And I have to honor that for my own well-being.
Right.
I got to be accountable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that mess young brothers up. Wow. Big time. Not only young brothers, young sisters too. So,
and I think that's where the vulnerability piece for them gets tapped in, because you're not threatening them, but you're being firm.
Right.
But their response to you isn't a threatening. It's a response to someone who is threatening them.
Right.
Because that's the emotional tools they have.
Right.
And a lot of these young folks, they're not scared. I hear educated folks like myself say these things like they're terrified and they're running from the police. Man, I don't know. These people must not spend too much time in the hood. The interactions I see with people in the police, they be cussing the cops out and all types of shit. They ain't scared of the cops. They are not scared. It's on sight, man. These young folks are ready. They are ready, able, and willing to get it popping. And it don't matter if you got a badge or not. Now, they might think twice if it's a cop sometimes, but that don't mean that they're scared. And that emotional threshold is so low. And the life skills and the decision, the conflict resolution skills and the decision-making skills are so low. And you know this, and I know this from how trauma affects the brain. When that amygdala is fired up, which I think most times Black folks, our temporal lobes, our limbic systems are on fire, man. You're not getting those electrical and chemical signals to the front part of your brain. So they're not making reasonable choices. They're making survival-based choices almost 24 hours a day. Some of these young folks don't even sleep.
Right.
That's why they medicate themselves so much, because they're always ready to go. So their ability to deal with vulnerability is to not deal with it and be ready for any type of threat possible at any given time. And if that means I got to run up on you and your daughter while you're taking groceries out of your car and take what you got, then that's what it is. Right now, we got a segment of our population functioning like they're in the middle of a Walking Dead episode, where it's I'm gonna come get your resources, whether you like it or not. And that is not going to end well for us. We have to have a different response. So that'd be my my ending thought.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you're on point. I'm so afraid. They're so afraid of being vulnerable because they've been vulnerable in really ugly spaces. That's what they're really afraid of. They're more afraid of being vulnerable, like you say, catch me slipping, right, than anything else, right? That ends up being the motivated factor, because when you can't be vulnerable with family,
right,
and you can't be vulnerable with community,
the person you're dating,
right,
hell, your children,
right. So why would I want to be as they say, caught slipping or not looking or whatever? So the fear, there is fear, the fear of being vulnerable to anything, right, and that includes being vulnerable to death.
Yeah,
think about what I'm saying. That includes being vulnerable to death. Done made peace with the fact, I'm gonna die and I'm gonna die early. It was like, ooh, right. And so then you make statements like, how you doing this week? Oh, I'm blessed. Why are you blessed? God let me wake up today. Anything else? Anything else? Oh no,
that's all I got.
That's all I got.
I'm just happy to see another year around the sun. 16 years old. You ain't supposed to be having posts like that. You ain't supposed to be saying stuff like that. You 16. You're supposed to be around the sun at least another 50, 60, 70 years of your life.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother thing. What's the saying? Black don't crack, but my whole thing is black don't crack, but we make good looking corpses.
Well, shit, man. When you're dying on the inside, making anything look pretty on the outside don't make no sense to me.
Yeah,
and that's where a lot of people are at, man.
Yeah. Well, more power to you. Okay, you got anything else to say?
The last thing that I would say is that the vulnerability. I don't want this to get lost amongst folks. Is we have to, if we're gonna be at these tables, having these conversations amongst community or family, we got to go deeper than just saying they need their daddies in their lives and they need mentors and they need better education and they need the police to get off their back. Like, those talking points mean nothing anymore. We got to go deeper and have a better idea of why are they doing this? Understand the culture that they're currently living in, because it is too dangerous to be having those approaches. I've noticed this all across the country. A lot of people who are doing that community interrupter type of work, a lot of those people are dying. I don't know if you've been seeing this. A lot of those people are dying, and not from like health reasons, which is another issue with that, but they're dying doing the work,
right?
Like getting shot,
right?
That is not good, because those are the folks who are being pointed to that are going to make the biggest difference. And they're becoming targets in the streets.
And they get ready to put tons of money in those kind of processes too. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's not fine. You know it ain't fine.
I will say something.
Shit. But the thing is, even at the best, that's temporary work. That's work. Even if it's working in the moment and it's temporary. How do you deal upstream and more long term if you don't have that along with the interrupter program?
Yeah, it has to be both.
Yeah.
And those folks need support, because that is a high emotionally taxing job. You're pretty much asking them to be mental health first responders and pseudo public safety officers at the same damn time in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods.
Right.
Across the country.
And being paid little or nothing, and you feeding off of the fact that they care about their neighborhood. That's what they do. That's how they're taking advantage of them.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And
go
ahead.
And in some cases, there are folks that was on the street that they took off the street and they didn't do enough work with them before they put them back on the street.
Right. So what happens? That transition from how to code switch out of street culture into more professional culture doesn't work right. And you see things get real ugly real quick. And that's a reality. Again, when we say things like that, it makes it seem like we're talking down on people. But if you're going to be at the table with mayors and police chiefs and stuff, that's a different level of engagement than it is just being in the streets. Like, that's just different. And you have to understand that. And it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It just means that you have to prepare yourself to be in a different space. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of work to be done. It is getting more and more dangerous by the day, unfortunately. And my hope is that we can get a lot more creative with the strategies that we're going to implement in order to curve what's happening. We are losing so many people. And, one thing we might want to talk about in one of our next episodes is how many Black women are becoming casualties in the community. And we're not talking, and I'm not talking about domestics.
Right.
I'm just talking about just victims of gun violence.
Right.
Like, there's something called the Gun Memorial. I don't think people know about this. It's like one of the saddest websites ever. But what they do is they track shootings all across the country. So any shooting death, they have it represented on the Gun Memorial, and they do a good job at connecting news links and giving you the full picture of what happened. And you'll be amazed at how many children and women are on those, man. And then typically they'll figure out who did the shooting and they'll update those profiles. And a lot of times they're being shot by Black men. So when we talk about this being dangerous, I'm surprised a lot of Black women are not sounding the horn on this, because this is crazy. I mean, we're losing everybody.
Well, that's because we done conditioned black women to be the keeper of Black men lives, almost at the cost of their own. And that's been going on for years. Yeah. So, yeah, we definitely need to have that conversation. Maybe we'll have that conversation and maybe we'll have a guest on at the same time. Because, we got some colleagues that could give us some more insight on that kind of thing as well.
Oh, yeah. And again, we're not talking about the domestics. You have the domestics in there. It gets scary, man. Like, we are losing it. We're losing it, man. It's really sad. It's really sad. Okay, any final thoughts from you, Sam? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
All right.
We'll see y'all next week.
We'll see y'all next week, Sunday, 3 p.m. It's time to deal with the pain. Peace.